Hey everybody, this is the Sliders Review, and I'm here today to talk to you about a show I recently discovered on Disney Channel. And that show is called Secrets of Sulphur Springs. Now, I don't typically watch Disney Channel shows or Nickelodeon shows because, I'm much older now. And it's kind of like Disney's pretty like silly for like young little kids, and their shows are pretty wacky. But the only show that I do watch on Disney Channel is a show called Bunked, and that's only because Bunked is a spinoff of Jessie. As I was on YouTube, I was looking for something about Bunk because they just added a new cast member and they got rid of one, and I wanted to see what like people are saying or why this person left and this and that. So when I went to like a trailer for Bunk, before that came on, an advertisement came on from Disney Channel about the Secret Show. And I'm just like, and as I'm watching it, I'm just like, what? I'm just like, did Disney really just go there? Like, did they just go there? Like, are they really doing this? Because this is Disney Channel we're talking about. Everybody knows Disney Channel has a certain type of brand that they have, It's all about like the little female lead star has her own show. It's pretty wacky, positive vibes, like stuff like that. And it's kind of like, are they really gonna do a mystery show that has to do with a girl disappearing from a summer camp 30 years ago? I'm just like, what? I'm all like, are they really changing? Like, even the intro is creepy because you see Savannah running and kind of like this fog outside, and then all of a sudden she just like disappeared. So Disney was truly trying to go a certain route with this show. Like, are they really going back about 20 years to when Disney Channel used to be a little bit different? Are they really about to go the So Weird route, which was a great show, by the way? Okay, so for those who don't know, So Weird, it was a show that came out late 90s, early 2000s. I was in high school, and when I was a senior in high school in 2001, it was in its third season. Pretty much So Weird is like this. Originally, it was a show about a young girl named Fee, and she traveled like the United States with her mom, who was in a band, and her brother best friend, and her mother's two older friends. And so when they would travel, all this paranormal, freaky, creepy, supernatural, like ghostly monster type stuff will always happen. And it will always happen to Fee because she had the ability to see that. And it was always like drawn to her. So like all this like supernatural mystery type stuff was always like attracted to her. And same way it was with her father. And so nobody else would believe her, and her family wouldn't believe her. Some random people in the streets won't believe her. And so like the girl literally spent like every episode trying to like solve like some type of like mystery that had to do with vampires, werewolves, friendly ghosts that came from the Titanic, an evil pirate ghost that would like possess you, astral projection, angels, a little girl who's in a coma but is only able to communicate I think through like the computer somehow. It was just like a weird, freaky little show, and it was great. It was Disney's only, like, I guess you could say, like, spooky dark series. And that was, like I said, back in like the late 90s and early 2000s. And that's really the only dark type of show that they had. It was kind of like Goosebumps or Are You Afraid of Dark, but it didn't really like go there, because, it's still Disney. But they went as far as they could with the show. And they try to go as far because, like, the thing is, Fee's dad wasn't really dead. He was trapped in the underworld. And she was supposed, and all these like ghostly demons were trying to like lead her there because they don't like her, because she kind of ruins their like, them wanting to like destroy mankind type stuff like that. So in the third season, she was supposed to go to the underground and rescue her dad. And Disney found out, and they said this ain't gonna happen. So next thing you know, in the third season, everything changed. It went to more like friendlier, lightheartedness, silliness. It wasn't as great. I think the showrunners left because they couldn't like finish their vision. The main actress left and they replaced her with a new girl. And it made no sense for her to travel with Fee's family, but they did it anyway. Oh, also Mackenzie Phillips is in this show, and she sings like in every episode. And then I think her name is Alex Johnson. I think her name is. She sung in the third episode, third season because she was a new girl brought in. But it was a really, 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 really good show, and it's really great for Halloween. It's on Disney Channel, not Disney Channel, but it's on Disney Plus right now, so you can check it out. Because I know, like, so back to this show. So I know, like, with Disney Channel, they like that whole, like, type of good vibes, wacky do brand. But then they started changing a little bit with Alex Mack, which I never saw because I really don't watch nothing on Disney. And Alex Mack felt more like a family type drama type show with a little bit of, like, silliness here and there from what I heard. And it's kind of like, it was kind of like the older days of Disney when they had things like Even Stevens, The Jersey, which you can't find The Jersey on Disney Plus. And the only reason why I think that is because with The Jersey, every episode has like a famous athlete. So they'll have to pay that person royalties, and they don't want to do that. But then starting with Lizzie McGuire, that's when Disney Channel changed. And they was kind of coming out of the whole Zoog Disney thing, going into the Disney Channel thing, which I like to call the Disney Princess era, where it's just like, like I said, the main lead female, she interacts with her family. There's some wacky stuff going on. She's either a pop singer or some type of spy or a wizard or something like that, And so I'm just like, could Disney be changing once again? Could they be going more of a serious route where, like they did with Alice Max? But then I found out that this show was originally for Disney Plus, not Disney Channel. So that's why it's a little bit more on the serious, spooky, eerie kind of feel, because I don't think Disney Channel would ever truly want to go there again, because Disney Channel is Disney Channel, but for whatever reason Disney Plus passed on it and gave the Disney Channel. But the first 5 episodes of this 11 episode first season is on Disney Plus for now. So what is this show and what's so eerie and mysterious about it that you might be wondering? Well, see, the show deals with a girl named Savannah, who's this like plucky little girl who's adventurous and stuff. And 30 years ago, back in the mid or late 1990s, she went missing at summer camp, and nobody never saw or heard from her again. And the entire town, a fictional town in Louisiana, everybody went searching for her and couldn't nobody find her. And the question was kind of like, okay, what happened? Was she kidnapped? Was she murdered? Was she attacked by an animal? Did she just like end up like in another like state, or like just like what happened to this girl, And so that was kind of like mysterious. And when you look at these still photos, you can see that this show was going that like eerie, mysterious, creepy kind of route. All of these pictures, like look at the family picture right here. Nobody is smiling. Everybody looks dreary and draft. Speaking of this photo, okay, so this show deals with a dude named Griffin, and he has a friend named Harper. Harper is the black girl you see in this picture. Now, the blonde girl is Savannah. Now, all the other people in the photo is Griffin's family members, and they make up the entire cast of the show. And there's 2 more that was left out of this photo. Who was left out? Harper's mom and Harper's brother, the 2 black characters. Why were they left out of this photo and they're in this show? And Harper's mom is pretty significant to this show. So that's Disney being their Disney like self, you know what I'm saying? And which is why that one actress, Zendaya, had a huge problem with them. Because if you don't know, Disney Channel has a huge problem when it comes to like black people. They don't really have that many black shows, and when they do have a black cast member, they're not really treated very well. Raven Simone herself was treated pretty badly on her own show. Well, they told her to stop tanning because they wanted her to be lighter. And they said they wanted her to be lighter because, the lighting with the camera. which there's some truth to that and some truth not, because I'm black and when I take a picture and there's not a certain amount of light, I look like so many different shades, like in so many different pictures, but you can compensate for that. And, and it was like, if the white people on the show are allowed to tan, then why couldn't the black girl, So it's just Disney being Disney again. But when you look at all these pictures, you can clearly see they was going for a certain direction with this show. They wanted it to be eerie, they wanted it to be dreary, they wanted it to be like creepy and mysterious, be a little bit aloof, like what's really going on. To let you know this isn't gonna be your typical Disney Channel wackadoo type show, you know. And it's just like they was kind of going down that Goosebumps, Are You Afraid of the Dark? What was that other show R.L. Stein created? The Haunting Hour. Like they was going more for that eeriness kind of feel. But of course, because this is Disney, they can't really go there because they're afraid it might scare the little kiddies and everything. And then of course, when it scares the kids, then the parents get mad. And when the parents get mad, and then shows end up getting canceled or like totally like redone, like So Weirded, or Lunatics Unleashed, or the original Batman movie series that came out in the 80s and the 90s. And I applaud Disney for trying to go this route, even though they fully couldn't go there, because it's kind of like a lot of people, even kids today and teenagers, they're getting tired of this like wackadoo type Disney good vibes feel, and like positive vibes, that's all like Disney wants. And it's kind of like it's a facade because not everybody's really like that. And some people like a little mystery and a little darkness to this stuff. And so this is cool. And plus the older Disney fans, they want to get back into Disney, but they don't because Disney Channel is for kids. And there's always that one thing that always brings them back. And then it's that one thing that brings them out again. So I applaud Disney for like going like this route. I just wish they would have kind of like went there. But I mean, does it pay off at the end of the season? Kinda. Once this is Disney and they can't really go there, but they went there in a way that's kind of satisfying. However, there's one huge problem I have with it. There's always this mysterious build-up with each episode where you think something sinister is like about to happen, or like somebody did something really terrible to Savannah in the past that caused her to disappear. But you'll soon realize that this show is a huge red herring. And it's because Disney can't really go that route. So it's like everything that keep building up to this disappearance. It's just one red herring after another. But this show is still mysterious and interesting enough to keep your attention. Like you will be hooked until the end. And then when you get to the end, you're even more hooked. However, Disney shot themselves in the foot when it came to this whole time travel element, which by the way, this show deals with time travel, which, hey, let's start talking about the show, shall we? So Griffin, his entire family moved from Chicago to Louisiana, and Chicago is the big city up north and Louisiana's down in the south, and they are two completely different places. I had a friend in college, she was from Chicago and she came down to Florida, and it's like she said, it's just like completely different and stuff. For one, we have more trees and outdoorsy stuff. And people accents are different. In this show, nobody has an accent. I guess they just didn't want to have to bother with all that. But this show, so when the Griffin family moves to Louisiana, it's so hard to pronounce this word, Sulphur Springs. When he's in school, well, first when his family moves to Louisiana, they buy this old rundown hotel. And this hotel hasn't really been in service since Savannah went missing. After she went missing, they shut it down because the hotel has like a camp on site, like a summer camp type place. And so when she went missing and nobody could find her, they decided, more people to stop going there because they didn't want to like go to the place. They had to go to a girl disappeared. So it pretty much got shut down. So his family moves into this place, buys it, and they're gonna like vamp it up. They're gonna make it to where it's back to being like a bread and breakfast type thing. So while they're in town, Ben, which is Griffin's dad, he meets his old friend named Jess, and they used to be friends back in summer camp. And she tells him, why did you buy that old hotel? Don't you remember what happened to Savannah? And she's all like, it was probably like the worst thing for your family to like move back to town. Y'all probably should just move back to Chicago, and stuff like that. But he doesn't really care, and he's gonna like remodel it in a way because he's hiding a secret, and it's like he's trying to figure out kind of like what happened to Savannah, and he's trying to like move past. Now that's also part of that huge red herring. Let's get into that later. So let's put a pin in that, shall we? So when Griffin's at school, he meets a girl named Harper, and Harper is the daughter of Jess. And so Griffin hears the story of how this girl named Savannah like disappeared at summer camp, and how his hotel is supposedly haunted, which I forgot to mention that. There's some kind of weird paranormal stuff going on in that hotel. So those two bond because of their love of like, mystery and paranormal type stuff. And they're around 12 years old. And Harper, she likes to draw. So she decides to go back to Griffin's place at the hotel. And the place is still run down. They're like exploring as much as they can. They're down in the basement. And when they're down in the basement, I forget what happens exactly, because it's been a good while since I watched this show. It came out, I think, in February or something like that. And so they're exploring down there, and they find kind of like this like hole in the wall type place, and they decide to crawl through it. Well, the hole in the wall leads into a bunker. So they're walking through this like mysterious bunker for a very long time. And when they get to the end, they see like boxes full of like old clothes and hazmat suits and just a bunch of weird stuff. Because a bunker is for like in case like something bad happens, like a storm or a war or something like that. And they see this door on the top of the bunker, and so they open it up and climb the ladder. And when they get out, they see that they're about a couple of blocks or maybe like a mile away from the hotel. And so, they're like, oh, it led us here. So let's like just head back to the hotel. So they head back on foot. And when they get back to the hotel, they realize everything's different. There are now tons of people there. There are cars. It's no longer run down. And they're kind of like, what the world just happened here? And so as they go there and they're starting to like, ask the people, like, interact with some of the people, they see a sign, I believe, that had like the year on it, and it said like 1990, and they're kind of like, did we just time travel? So and then they start to realize, wait a minute, in the 90s, that's when that girl went missing. So then they think to themselves, maybe they can just like prevent it, you know what I'm saying? So she won't have to go missing, and then town won't have to act the way they do, and the hotel could still be like a regular hotel. And so then they go searching for the Savannah girl, so they can try, but they don't know exactly how they're gonna prevent her from going missing. As they're walking around the hotel, they see two young people, a young little black girl and a young little white dude. And when they find out those people's names, they can't believe that they're the younger versions of their parents. So when they head back to the bunker and back into the basement, back to the hotel, they realize now that, this thing sends them back in time 30 years. So they don't tell nobody, which if they do tell people, it's kind of going to be the show's going to kind of suck. But anyway, so they don't tell nobody, and they come up with this plan. They're going to save Savannah. But, first they have to keep going back and try to figure out more clues as to how and when she disappeared and when exactly. Now, as all of this is going on through the series, a bunch of strange, mysterious, paranormal stuff starts happening. And that's where the two younger characters come into play. They're the twins. They're Zoe and Ward. And pretty much they believe that the ghost of Savannah is haunting the hotel. because they'll go to a certain room and all of a sudden it'll turn like freezing cold. All of a sudden things might like start moving a little bit. All of a sudden there's this old radio and they hear a little girl singing on it. And here's the weird thing. The radio isn't even plugged up. And the voice we find out later on is Savannah's voice and she's singing. And so the little twins are completely freaked out. Completely freaked out. So they tell their adults, and of course they don't believe them. And so the little two twins decide, you know what? We're gonna prove to y'all that this ghost is real and stuff like that. So like they get like a video camera and they start like putting it down like in the little basement area, and they start trying to like record stuff and try and get like the ghost caught on camera or just something, you know. But they're unable to do it. But they don't give up. That's one good thing about them. Now, as Harper and Griffin are constantly going back through time, you know, Harper is constantly missing. And when her mom wants to find out where she's at, she tells her. And her mom's all like, look, I don't want you nowhere near that hotel. I don't want you hanging out with that Griffin boy. You stay away from the Campbell family, which Griffin's last name is Campbell. And so it's kind of like, now why doesn't she want her daughter hanging around them? Why don't she want her daughter going to that hotel? And so that begins like the first mystery of all this disappearance stuff with that girl and the time travel stuff. Does Harper mom actually know something and she just doesn't want to say? And so Harper's mom gets pretty stern when she tells her daughter, you know, stay away from that place, and she starts to get kind of mean. Oh, also one thing I want to point out, I'm applauding Disney for going like the older route, because like the parents, you know, when they have parents in their like mid 30s, 40s, something like that, but you don't ever see nobody with gray hair. Harper mom Jess has gray hair, and I applaud them for that. But of course, this is supposed to be a Disney Plus show, so you know. So when like Griffin and Harper are constantly going back in time, you know, they change their clothes up so they can look more like in the 90s. And since there's so many old clothes in that bunker, they're able to like, you know, and in the basement, they're able to like change up and stuff like that. So one thing they try to do is they're going to try to prove that the Savannah girl is actually alive and they're time traveling. So I think they bring like the cell phone to record it. However, when they go through time, there's like a huge jolt, and it like flattens the battery, or it drains the batteries of like whatever electronic thing you have. So they're not able to do that. So, you know, they decide this is the perfect time to see what their parents are like back in the past. So they start interacting with them. Ben is a pretty nice guy, you know. He's not brash. He likes to play the guitar. He has an overbearing dad. You know, he's really enjoying his time at camp and stuff like that. And Savannah and him are like really good friends. Like, you know, Savannah's kind of like the cool kid and everything. Jess is more like a little fashion type girl. She's catty, she's a little bratty, she's a little stuck up at times, she's a little rude and mean, and she starts to get very jealous of when Ben and Savannah constantly are hanging out because she has a crush on Ben. So this is starting to build a lot of animosity towards her. So then that stops people to think, could Savannah have went missing because of Jess? Jess is very, very, very mean in the past. And when Jess wants something, she wants it. And when something gets in her way, she's not too thrilled about that. So then it's kind of like, okay, did Jess harm Savannah in some kind of way? Like, is the show really going to go that route and everything? So a little by little in each episode, we start to find out more and more about what happened at the camp when they start time traveling. Because they're trying to keep their best eye on Savannah, but it's kind of hard because they want to interact with their parents. Now, in the future, or I should say the present day, in the present day, Harper's mom, Jess, like lies to her a lot. She will not tell her the truth. She hides stuff from her. And one of the things she's hiding from her is that she went to summer camp and that she knew Ben as a child. Harper didn't know that. And when Harper finds that out by traveling in the past, she wants to know why her mom deceived her. So she starts kind of like questioning her mom a little bit. Mom's not happy about that. And she starts laying down the law about, hey, you need to stop going over there to hang out with that boy. And then that's another reason why I started to think, could Jess be the culprit in Savannah's disappearance? Like, why didn't she tell her daughter, like, she knew Savannah, she knew Ben, she went to summer camp. Like, what secret is she really hiding? Because she's hiding a secret and she doesn't want nobody to know. Also, in the present day, Ben, he's hiding a secret. He is feeling very guilty about something. And it's kind of like, now, could he be the culprit? Could he have caused Savannah to go missing? And so, like, because in the present day, he always has this stern look on his face. Whenever he hears something paranormal is going on in the house, he believes it from his twins. The mom doesn't believe it at all, but he believes it. He knows something's going on, but he won't say. And it's kind of like, does he know about the time travel bunker? Does he know? 'Cause when he finds out the hidden, like, he finds like a hidden wall in another wall somehow. And he's taken by surprise. So it's kind of like, maybe he doesn't know about the bunker and stuff. So back in the past, as Jess and Harper, young Jess and Harper are talking to each other, Harper is starting to suspect that maybe her mom did something to Savannah because she doesn't like her at all. And so, but she can't figure out what it is. And because Jess does not like Savannah at all. So at some point, I think she said something about she's going to get her back or something like that for something. So at the dance, they're all dancing and Harper's like worried her mom's going to do something. But it turns out her mom has like a mixtape and she was going to ask Ben to dance. Well, Savannah and Ben end up dancing. That breaks Jess's heart and she becomes irate. So Jesse is trying to like, not just, but Harper is trying to like console her, but Jess ain't having none of this. And then Jess is kind of like, who exactly are y'all? Because, y'all just all of a sudden appear out of nowhere and then y'all disappear out of nowhere. And then and y'all aren't campers and you don't live at the hotel. So who are y'all and stuff? So Jess decides she's going to rat them out to the campers and stuff. And when she does that, of course, the police get called. Now, one interesting thing about this show is the alias that Harper and Griffin use. They use the alias of Harry and Hermione from the Harry Potter series. Because, of course, in the 90s, that's when the books were being written and they were just now starting to come out and a lot of people didn't know about them. So it's kind of like a really clever thing. However, the books do come out towards the late mid 90s. So probably when they time travel, it's probably like the early 90s and stuff. But I just think that's like really cute. So as they travel back in the past, days and days are going by and it's getting close to when Savannah is about to disappear. So, they're trying to like do their best to kind of like warn her best as they can, but they're really unable to do it. So they're trying to keep like an eye on her and stuff, but they can't now because now they're in the back of a cop car. And so as they're being taken to the station, all of a sudden, Savannah goes missing. So the cop has to go back and now everybody in town is searching for her. So now with Savannah missing and everything, it's kind of like, what happened to her? Did Jess do something to her? Did Ben do something to her? But then, this show really wants to build the suspense of something happened to her. Like at one point in time, they show like a person in a hoodie with sunglasses, I think. And that person was kind of like spying on the kids. And it's kind of like, well, who is this person? It's never been revealed. So it's kind of like, did that person kidnap Savannah? So while Griffin and Harper are in the back of the squad car, they're about to go down to the station until the cop gets like a call on the radio talking about like everybody needs to search for that little missing girl. So then he heads back to the hotel and he leaves them in the car because, well, he leaves one of them in the car. I believe, yeah, Griffin, because I believe Harper said she has to use the restroom. So he lets her use the restroom. But then something happens and she sneaks. When we get to the present day, because Harper is constantly disappearing, she wants to know where Jess wants to know where she's at. So Topher, which is Jess' little younger brother, he's pretty cool, by the way. Like, when it comes to this show, him and the twins don't really do much, but they're so cool they deserve their own show. But anyway, Topher, Harper's been paying him to keep his mouth shut. So of course his mom is pretty pissed. I think she pays him more or something like that, or she just pretty much tells him to tell her right here, right now. And so he tells her, she's been hanging out with the Griffin boy, going to the Trimont Hotel. And so, like, Jess is furious. So she goes to Ben and tells him, what their kids have been up to and this and that. And that how she doesn't want her daughter hanging out with his son. And he agrees. So when they finally do find Harper and Griffin, they lay down the law, ask them what's going on. And Harper comes up with the excuse of they've been sneaking away to kiss. And so they're kind of like, oh, okay, y'all are secretly dating and you don't want nobody to know. So this eventually causes Jess and her mom to kind of be a little bit nicer to each other, but not really. So her mom is still telling her, stay away from this boy. So I don't know when exactly Ben tells them this, but we now find out Ben's big secret. Young Ben tells him that when him and Savannah were in the clubhouse, Jess came in and taunted her and started making fun of her, and she dared her to spend the whole night in the basement. Well, Savannah was scared, but then, after Jess leaves, Savannah gets like really upset, and because she wants to be like the little tough girl, and because she wants to prove that she can spend the whole night in the basement. Because she spent the whole night in their little treehouse a couple of times. Well, Ben tells her, you don't have nothing to prove to her, and Savannah's like, yes, I do. Like, she thinks I'm a little coward. So, but then she agrees not to do it. But then, in the middle of the night, she wakes up and she takes off to go to the basement. Ben sees this and he goes after her. And while she's in the basement, he's there too. And he tells her, you shouldn't do this. Because like I said, you have nothing to prove. But then he hears like a loud noise, gets scared, and runs off. But she stays there the entire night. He doesn't ever go back for her. And so that's his big regret. He believes that when she spent the night there, because he doesn't know about the whole time travel thing, but he believes that she stayed there and then later on she decided to like run off and disappear. So he feels guilty because he felt he could have avoided that. And that's his big, bad secret. I thought he had something to do with it, because that's the way they kept alluding to it. But like I said before, this show is a giant red herring. So it's kind of like, okay, well, he doesn't know about the bunker. So as they're walking, they start to figure out that, if Savannah was down in the basement the entire time, she must have got curious, found that hole in the wall, and, went down into the bunker and then time travel. And that's where she's been this entire time. That's why she's been missing, because she traveled back 30 years. So she's around in like the 1960s. So Harper and Griffin are kind of wondering how they're going to get back there. Because if they go through like the bunker entrance that's outside, they'll just go back to the present. So they figured they had to go back to the hotel down into the basement. So when they sneak into the hotel and they go down in the basement, they see like a radiation like symbol. So they know that's where the hole in the wall must be. And it's like a tiny little hole, but not as big as it was in the present. So they say, well, since it's so tiny, Savannah could have crawled through it. Why she will crawl through it, who knows? Like, I don't know. So they crawl through, and they don't have time to change their clothes. And then next thing you know, when they exit the bunker, they're in the 1960s. And sadly, there's a huge storm coming. Like, there's like wind blowing everywhere. So it must be like a tornado storm. Because during a hurricane, there'll be like rain and stuff. So it must be just a tornado. And it's a really bad tornado. So they're trying to like get to the hotel as fast as they can. They see this worker there. They ask if he's seen Savannah. because he hasn't seen nobody, but y'all need to get inside because there's a bad storm and get back to your parents' place. And so they go around the hotel and they go inside, and there's Savannah, and she's like you can tell Ben like the ruse is up, and they're all kind of like, what are you talking about? And she's all like, he pulled a prank on me that first just teased that I couldn't stay there in the basement, but then when I was there all night he redid the whole like hotel. Now this girl truly believes that a little boy who's about 12 years old overnight revamped the entire hotel with new phones and a lot of old timey stuff. She truly believes that. And like Griffin and Harper are trying to tell her, like, no, like you just traveled back in time. And she's like, I don't believe y'all. She's like, he had help. And they're like, who would help him? And she's all like, his dad. And they're like, you really expect that grumpy man to help him? And she's like, probably not. So they managed to convince her to go back with them in the present, well, 1990s present, because they tell her, like bad stuff happens when you disappear. So she's like, all right. So as they're running through the woods, they're trying to get back to the bunker, and the storm is getting worse. Well, Harper goes first, and then Griffin goes second, but then Savannah trips and falls, and then a giant tree falls on top of the bunker. So now she's trapped in 1960, hence why she disappeared. They're trying their best to get the hatch open, but they can't. And Harper tells them, it's useless because they're just not strong enough, and they have to get back to the present because they've been gone for too long. And she said, they'll look to see what happened to her, in like newspapers or like stuff like that. So at some point in time, they get back to the future. They're confronted by all the parents, and so it's Sarah and it's Ben, and he asks where y'all been, why y'all still hanging out, and I think they tell him, look, it has something to do with Savannah missing, and we know y'all was friends in the past, and blah blah blah, stuff like that, and y'all both went to camp. Okay, Griffin's mom Sarah doesn't know about this at all because her husband has been kind of like keeping secrets from her. I think he told her he didn't know anything about that Savannah girl, how she went missing, and so they have a heart to heart, and to the point where the mom's kind of like, you know what, I'm done. Like this, like she's tired because like, why did you lie to me about the whole Savannah thing? Then there's the whole Jess thing. You lied to me about her, about not knowing her, and then eventually y'all did know each other. And how people keep warning the entire family to get out that hotel and stay out of town, and she's just had enough. So she decides, you know what, you can either come or stay, but she's packing up and she's taking the kids with her, and they're moving back to Chicago. So when she tells Griffin all this, he's upset. He doesn't want to leave, and of course Harper's upset because they want to solve this huge mystery, and they're trying to do it before they have to leave and everything. Because if they don't have access, or if Harper doesn't have access to the hotel, she can't get down in the basement and go into the bunker. So out of nowhere, when Sarah is like in the hotel, she's walking around. She passes a mirror. It gets super cold in the room, and the mirror fogs up, and something writes "stay" on the mirror, and she is freaked out. Now she's starting to believe that there is in fact a ghost in this house, and the question is, who wrote that? Was it Savannah? Was it like an actual ghost? Like, who wrote that? So when they're in the present, Harper's in the library. I want to point out that this is Sherry's Marina's one of her last acting roles on a TV show, as she has sadly passed away. She played a teacher in about 1 or maybe 2 episodes, and she discovers a picture of the old hotel, and there is a picture in 1960s with Savannah in it, so they know she's still there and still alive. Now I forget how, but somehow they determined that the old little radio can send them back in time. I truly don't remember how. I really don't, and I don't have time to look back because I can't, because it's not on Disney Plus. But I think somehow they asked like Savannah like a question of like, no, I forgot what it was. I truly don't remember. I really don't remember. But something happened with the radio. I think it started acting funny, and they figured it might have some kind of paranormal type stuff. So when they turn it around, they see there's like these little dials in there, and it's like 4-digit dial. So they figure if they turn into 1960, maybe it'll take them to 1960. So they do it, and then it starts glowing. So it works. And so while they're there in the 1960s, they're now really desperate to find Savannah because the place looks completely different now. And so as they're walking around, they start to see like, oh, it's basically just a hotel now. It's not like really much of a camp type thing. And so when they're there, they start kind of like asking around a little bit. Have you seen this girl named Savannah? And the bellhop dude tells, Harper, you might want to get away from here, 'cause you don't belong here and stuff. And the reason for that is because they're in the 1960s. And Harper is black, and the bellhop dude is a black worker there. And Griffin's kind of like, I don't understand why Harper can't be here. And, I think Harper tells him because I'm black, and Griffin doesn't really understand, because it has to do with racism back in the old days. I gotta say, I applaud you, Disney, for going that route. And not necessarily going full on racist, but explain that there was racism back in the day and y'all didn't try to fluff over that. So that was kind of neat. And they find Savannah. She's all like, I'm not going back. And they all like, well, why not? And she's pretty much like, because like things are great here. Like there's this family that like adopted her and everything. Because I think with her is that she doesn't have no real parents. In the 1990s, I think she was like adopted by this other family she doesn't really like. And so it's now finally she has people that like love her and take care of her. And so she's like, I'm just not leaving. And they're all like, you have to like explain, what all happened and stuff, because you disappeared and blah, blah, stuff like that. And they're all like, okay, fine, if you don't want to go back, then at least write a letter to my dad explaining what happened or something like that. Or better yet, just tell him that, it's not his fault and he shouldn't feel guilty, stuff like that. So she writes a letter and she gives it to him. And then when they go back to the present, they he gives his dad the letter. And so the letter pretty much just states that it doesn't say anything about time travel. So it's just pretty much saying that, she just like left or something like that, and he shouldn't be feeling guilty that she left because it's not his fault, and she's happy where she's at, and she has a nice family now and stuff like that. So now Ben's all like, okay, woo, kumbaya, you know what I'm saying? I don't feel guilty no more. So it's kind of like, in a way, it was a nice little payoff to, because she did disappear technically, and people didn't know where she went. I really wish Disney could have went there and said somebody probably like kidnapped her or something like that, or something like bad might have happened, because that would have been a lot more interesting and it would have been more mature for showing that Disney is trying to like grow, you know what I'm saying? And but I get they can't go there because kids watch this show, but I guess it was a satisfying into all means of her disappearing, because technically she did disappear because she's in the 60s. But here's the thing. She would have been about 40 in the 1990s. So it's kind of like, realistically thinking, why didn't she just adopt her younger self and then pretend to be like her mom or something like that? And then, of course, when it gets to like the year 2021, she would have been somewhere in her 60s or 70s. So why didn't she just go back to the campsite or the hotel and explain to like, Griffin and Harper, hey, this and that, blah, 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 time travel, this and that, because they would have known about it by then, you know what I'm saying? Or why didn't she just go to Ben in the 2021 and explain, hey, I didn't disappear and this and that, blah, blah. So it's kind of like, why didn't they go and do that? So now they're back in the present day, and, Harper decides, well, since they are now able to determine how they want to go back in time and what time era, so they don't have to keep going back 30 years, she's decided that she's going to alter her past. See, one thing I didn't mention about Harper. Harper's father is dead. Every morning before school, she goes to his gravesite, and she said, she talks to her dad. Apparently what happened is that he died in a car accident. because that's what her mom tells her. Let's put a pin in that. And so, she decides, or if she can prevent her dad from dying, then, you know, then he won't die, and she'll have her dad. And the thing that gave her this idea was because when they was in the 1990s, after young Jess got over Ben, she met a new boy, and kind of like this dude working kind of like bellhop type thing. And so her mom started dating him. Turns out that little boy that she saw in the past was her dad. And so, like, she asked her mom about him, and she's all like, "Oh yeah, I met your dad when I was at the hotel when we was younger, and then we fell in love, and like this and that." That gives her the idea, well, she can go back in the past and like change things. And she has to hurry up too, because at this point, Griffin and his family are about to move. So, Griffin tells her, don't do nothing, blah, 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 stuff like that. It's wrong to change the past, and blah, blah, blah. But then, of course, they want to change the past with Savannah. So she does it anyway. And she goes back into the past. And she meets her dad, who's a grown man. And he's driving a car. So she asks for a ride to, like, somewhere. And so they're in the car, and she's going to prevent that crash. And as they're driving, they see that a car is coming towards them. So she tells him, like, look out. So he swerves, and he's fine. So it's like, great, you know what I'm saying? So then after that, she spends some time with him. They kumbaya a little bit. He tells her, like, how, like, he plans on selling his car because he's going to buy the hotel because, it used to be a sugarcane place back in, like, the old days and stuff. How his family has ties there and stuff like that. It's something she never knew because her mom, once again, didn't tell her. And also, her mom didn't even know. Her mom didn't even know that he wanted to buy that place. So after saving the day, she goes back to the present. Griffin finds her and tells her, great news, I'm not going to move. My mom decided she's going to stay and stuff like that. And he asks, where you been? And she tells him, like, like she changed history. And she's all like, her dad said that he was going to buy the hotel and everything's going to change. So the future's going to be totally different now. So, as they go back to the hotel, nothing's changed. Everything's the same. And Griffin's family still owns the hotel. So she doesn't understand what happened. So she's heartbroken. She goes home. She's crying. And as she's crying, she's looking at some pictures that she drew. And in the pictures, she sees a little girl drowning. And then all of a sudden, because this is Disney, they have to wrap everything up in the last episode, she starts to have flashbacks of a little girl in the water. And she starts to wonder, wait a minute, she doesn't think her dad died in a car crash. So she confronts her mom. And of course, it's there her mom decides to tell her the truth. And the truth being is that her dad didn't die in a car crash. What happened was Harper starts to remember that she was drowning and that her dad tried to save her. But then he ended up drowning himself because they was in a canoe and the canoe went over. But then the next day, for some bizarre reason, she started to remember a car. So her mom just kind of went with it and said, oh yeah, your dad died in a car crash. Her mom does not like telling the truth. I swear, man. Next thing you know, Savannah shows up at the hotel house in the present day. And they're like, Savannah, like, what are you doing here? You said you would never come in the present and stuff like that. And she said, like, I wasn't. But my adoptive family had me clearing out the basement and we found this old picture. The old picture is freaky. It's a picture of Harper dressed in old-fashioned clothes in the 1930s. And so they're kind of like, well, what's this about? Now, like, well, clearly Harper's been time traveling at some point in time and ended up in the 1930s. So it's kind of like, okay, well, what did future Harper do and why did she go back there and stuff? So they're like, okay, we have to go back to the 1930s and figure out what's going on. So they go back down to the basement. They play around with the radio. But before I get into that, first I want to reveal something that happened with the twins. So one day when the twins were in their room, they see the rocking chair moving by itself. So they're freaked out. They tell Griffin. Griffin doesn't necessarily believe them, but one day when he's in the room by himself, he sees the rocking chair is moving all by itself too. So he's kind of freaked out and he's kind of like, what's going on? So when he goes down in the basement, right before he finds Jess, he sees that there are wet footprints on the floor. And he doesn't understand how they got there. He thinks it might be some kind of ghost. Okay, so now Harper, Savannah, and Griffin, they played around with the radio and they went back in time. She's actually shocked by this, that they can actually time travel using the radio, because she didn't know. So that means when she went to the present, she had to go like the long route. She had to go from like the 1960s all the way to 1990s. Then go back down into the basement, through the bunker to get into the present 2021. Which begs the question, if she went back to the 1990s, why didn't she just stay there and let everybody know, hey, look, I'm not missing. I've been found. I mean, yes, she loves her family in the 1960s, and that's the main reason why. But you think all of this could have been solved if she just would have stayed there and stuff. But of course, that's just a setup for season 2, which, by the way, this show yet has not been renewed. It might not. Nobody knows yet, so stay tuned. And so, then she goes back into the present and meet the kids. So when they're back in the 1930s, the whole place looks different. You can tell like they're back in the 1930s. It's done by an open field. There are horses. It looks like a farm, because it's more like a house than it is a hotel and a bed and breakfast type thing. And so they sneak into the house because they didn't have time to change their clothes. And so they're walking around the house, and they're walking around really slow, and they make their way, I think, upstairs or somewhere. Yeah, upstairs. And they slowly open the door, and they see somebody. We see the back of somebody. I don't know if it's a male or female. But it's a black person, and they're in a rocking chair, and they're slowly rocking back and forth. And it's kind of like, Now the rocking chair in the future day present was rocking by itself. Let's put a pin in that. And so they hear a loud noise. They get creeped out, and they like rush downstairs, and they're getting ready to like leave out the house when they open the front door. And then the biggest reveal of them all is present day Harper looking at future 1930s Harper. And then it just ends. Because they're trying to set up for like the second season. And so it's kind of like, what the world is going on? It's like, why is Harper back in the 1930s? Why is she still there now? As the present day kids are like snooping around and stuff. So let's try to figure some things out. Now we see that there's some type of ghostly type figure that writes on like somehow it makes it cold in the room. How they make it cold, I don't know. It's never explained. And this ghostly figure will write like on the mirror. Cause it wrote there twice. First it said stay. To the mom, because they wanted the mom to stay in that house because it needs the kids to constantly go back in time and do whatever they have to do. Then a second time, that ghostly like figure, the twins were in their room, and they asked straight up when the chair started rocking, "Are you Savannah?" And the ghostly figure that we can't see because it's invisible, the ghostly figure writes on the mirror, "No." So it's like okay. So the ghostly figure that was in the rocking chair and wrote no, I'm thinking it's that old person we saw in 1930 rocking around. Somehow, things that happened in the past are able to manifest themselves in the present day. How exactly? I don't know. They haven't explained that paranormal element yet. They probably don't even know themselves, the writer. So it's kind of like they'll probably come up with a solution in the second season, if it gets a second season. And it should, 'cause this is a really intriguing show. So it's like, okay, so when certain things happen in the past, somehow you're able to do something, and it's able to do it in the present. Somehow there's some type of ties to that old-fashioned radio, and that allows them to time travel. Somehow this old-fashioned radio is able to hear Savannah singing in the 1960s. somebody wrote the word stay. Who? Don't know. It couldn't have been Savannah because Savannah doesn't want to go back to the present. So it had to have been somebody else. Then there's the question of where them wet footprints came from. The only thing we know about anything has to do with water is when Harper was a little girl and her dad and her was drowning and then her dad died. So could it be Harper's dad that's doing this whole ghostly thing? We don't know. Then there's the huge question of them all. Why is Harper back in 1930s? Or is it even Harper herself? Could it be her grandparent that just happens to look like her? Like, for all we know, this could be her ancestor. And her ancestor probably just looks like her. We don't know because the show ended on a cliffhanger. And I'm hoping it gets a second season because it deserves it. You know? And it deserves it for like a lot of different reasons. It deserves it because this show is very interesting. It's intriguing. It's not the greatest show ever, but it keeps you kind of hooked to where you want to know what's going to go on. Because each episode, it keeps building and building and building. But what it builds to is a huge red herring. And so I'm curious to know what's going to happen in the second season. Also, these kids so far on the show seem like well-mannered. They don't seem like the Disney kids of like the early 2000s. The ones where they become like superstars overnight. They get paid like millions of dollars and then they end up in and out of like jail and rehab. You know, so far these kids seem well-mannered, so that's kind of cool. So I really hope that this show gets like another season because it really deserves it. And I'm hoping that they will clear up all these like little plot hole type stuff. Like, who was the person in the hoodie with sunglasses spying on the kids? You know, that they need to explain certain things with this show. All right. Well, that was my review. Alrighty. Well, I'll talk to y'all later. Bye.